Chapter 4: Sacred Geometry. As early civilizations continued to observe the heavens and the rhythms of nature, they began to notice something remarkable. The same patterns that govern the sky also appeared on Earth. Shapes, proportions, and relationships repeated themselves across scales, from the movement of stars to the structure of plants, from the human body to monumental architecture. This realization gave birth to what later became known as sacred geometry. Sacred geometry was not a belief system. It was a way of recognizing order. Ancient people did not invent these shapes. They discovered them. Geometry was understood as the visible language of creation, a blueprint underlying both nature and cosmos. At its most basic level, sacred geometry begins with the point. A point has no dimension, no width or height, yet it represents origin, the moment before form emerges. From a symbolic perspective, the point represents unity, source, and potential. When the point moves, it creates a line. The line represents direction, action, and extension. It introduces the idea of movement away from the source. In symbolic terms, it is the first expression of creation. When a line moves around a point, it creates a circle. The circle became one of the most important symbols in ancient thought. It has no beginning and no end. All points along its edge are equal in distance from the center. For early observers, the circle represented wholeness, eternity, and balance. If you imagine ancient illustrations, you would often see a simple circle representing the sun, the moon, the cycle of the year, or the totality of existence. Stone circles, ritual enclosures, and round temples reflected this understanding. To stand inside a circle was to place oneself within cosmic order. The next major geometric form emerges when a circle is repeated. Imagine a single circle. Now imagine a second circle of the same size overlapping it, with each circle's center resting on the other's circumference. Where they intersect, a new shape appears. This form is known today as the vesa pieces. Ancient artists and builders did not name it as such, but they used it extensively. The vesica piscis was seen as a symbol of creation through union. Two equal forces overlap, producing a third form between them. This shape appears in early religious art, architectural proportions, and symbolic diagrams. It later became associated with birth, balance, and transformation. In visual terms, imagine two luminous circles intersecting, forming an almond-shaped space in the middle. That central space represented emergence, something new born from relationship. From this form, more complex patterns arise. When circles are repeated in precise relationships, they create patterns now known as the flower of life. Though the name is modern, the pattern itself is ancient. Variations of it appear carved into stone in Egypt, India, and throughout the ancient world. If you were to visualize it, imagine a field of evenly spaced circles, each overlapping the next, creating a symmetrical floral pattern. For ancient observers, this was not decoration. It represented the interconnectedness of all things. Everything grows from the same underlying structure. Sacred geometry extended beyond abstract diagrams into architecture. Temples, pyramids, cathedrals, and monuments were constructed according to specific geometric ratios. These ratios were believed to harmonize human space with cosmic order. One of the most important of these ratios is now called the golden ratio. The golden ratio appears when a line is divided in such a way that the relationship between the whole and the larger part is the same as the relationship between the larger part and the smaller. This proportion appears repeatedly in nature, in shells, leaves, branching plants, and even the proportions of the human body. Ancient builders used this ratio intuitively. Temples designed with these proportions felt harmonious, balanced, and alive. People often described such spaces as sacred without knowing why. The geometry itself produced the effect. In many ancient diagrams, geometry was used to describe the structure of the universe. Circles represented celestial spheres. Lines represented axes of movement. Triangles symbolized stability and direction. Squares represented the material world and structure. Imagine an ancient cosmological drawing, a square base representing Earth with a circle above representing the heavens. This symbolic pairing appears across cultures. The square grounds, the circle transcends. The triangle held particular importance. With 3 sides and 3 angles, it symbolized creation and balance. In sacred art, triangles often point upward or downward. An upward-pointing triangle represented ascent, fire, or masculine energy. A downward pointing triangle represented descent, water, or feminine energy. When these two triangles overlapped, they formed a six-pointed star, another ancient symbol of union and balance. Geometry was also applied to the human body. Early thinkers noticed that human proportions followed recognizable patterns. The span of the arms compared to height, the placement of joints, and the division of the body into harmonious sections suggested that humans themselves reflected cosmic order. In illustrated manuscripts, you would often see a human figure standing inside a circle and a square, arms extended, symbolizing humanity as a bridge between earth and heaven. Sacred geometry served as a teaching tool. It allowed complex ideas to be transmitted visually rather than verbally. Long before writing was common, shapes taught principles of balance, relationship, and harmony. Over time, much of this understanding was lost or fragmented. Geometry became purely mathematical. Symbols became decoration. The deeper meaning faded from common knowledge, yet the forms remained. Even today, sacred geometry continues to resonate because it reflects structures embedded in reality itself. When people encounter these patterns, they often feel a sense of familiarity or calm, even without understanding why. This chapter reveals that geometry was never merely about measurement. It was about meaning. Shapes were not passive forms. They were expressions of the same forces that shaped stars, seasons, and life itself. Sacred geometry represents the point where observation becomes insight. It is the meeting place between science, art, and spirituality. By recognizing these patterns, early humans believed they were aligning themselves with the structure of creation. In understanding geometry as sacred, ancient civilizations were not mystifying mathematics. They were acknowledging that order exists, and that it can be seen, traced, and honored through form.